G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to go through yet another stretch that I think that you should absolutely be doing every day, but probably aren't. And this stretch is going to go after stiffness in the upper back or thoracic area. And like each stretch that we're going through in this series, restricted tissue, joint stiffness, muscular tightness in that upper back is really important because it's central to a lot of other peripheral dysfunction that we tend to see day to day. So if you're dealing with any neck dysfunction, whether that be lower neck dysfunction, upper neck dysfunction, even jaw pain, neck pain and headaches, or you have any shoulder issue or shoulder blade related issue, or even if you're dealing with some mid back or low back dysfunction, going after the restricted tissue in your upper back can be a really crucial piece of the puzzle that you may not have realized was actually there that could help you conquer that dysfunction long term. So again, it goes without saying that trying to find a really good exercise that mobilizes that upper back area can have such a profound impact on everything else around that and all the function that relies on that area as well. Now, obviously this is a favorite exercise on the channel, and if you have any particular ball at all, we're going to place that ball into your upper back and go hunting around for any of the stiffnesses or the tightnesses or the restrictions that may be impacting you without you realizing. Now, I'm using a lacrosse ball because I like the density and the grippiness that it gives me, but if you're someone who is very tender or very sore when you do this, please regress to something a lot softer like a tennis ball or a handball or something that is exactly the type of pressure that you feel comfortable with. You can also change up the surfaces that you do this on. If a harder floor doesn't feel too comfortable for you, carpet or a mat will obviously be better. If that's too hard for you, doing it up against a wall or up into a chair or something might be a better starting point for you. But the goal is to take an object like a ball, press it into the joints and the tissues of your upper back, and respectfully ask that tissue to give and mobilize so that your function returns. So as always, what we want to get you to do is you want to take the ball, and we're going to really target specifically between the base of your neck and sort of the base of your shoulder blade. This dysfunction, again, tends to be so central to normal shoulder function, to neck dysfunction, and even lower back dysfunction below that. But what we want to get you to do is start sort of up in the middle somewhere, and then come off to the left a little bit. And then again, all we're going to get you to do is lie down on top of the ball and gently let that ball press in. And what we're looking to try and do here is we're not right on the bumps down the middle of the spine. I've just rolled off specifically to the spots just next to that. This is where your thoracic spinal joints tend to be. If you come out a fraction further towards your shoulder blade, this will be more where your rib joints tend to be. Now, both of these have the potential to be dysfunctional, so we want to make sure we don't miss anything. So the goal with this exercise isn't to roll up and down. Again, that can be quite tender, quite uncomfortable. But again, I just don't think it does as good of a job as just keeping some constant pressure on this. So all I want you to do is find a spot that maybe feels a little bit stiff, a little bit tight, a little bit tender, and just relax on that ball. Let the ball press in, let it do its job. Now, obviously, have your phone out, do it in front of the TV, do it somewhere that you can spend a genuine amount of time, some quality time looking for all these stiffnesses and tightnesses and getting them to go away. But what I'd like you to do is, once you've found a really good spot, compare that exact same spot to the other side and take note of how that feels. Now, traditionally, we tend to go where it feels sore, but in this instance, because we're trying to mobilize and de-stiffen and de-restrict tissue, we want you to spend the most time on the spots that feel the hardest and the stiffest and the tightest, not just the ones that feel the most tender. So again, I found a good spot here for me. So I'm going to stay here for 30 seconds or a minute until I feel like it starts to soften or becomes a little bit less tender. Then once I've had enough of that, I can then move the ball down a tiny little bit closer to the spine or out a little bit further towards the shoulder blade to hit those rib joints as well as the spinal joints, and keep systematically working up and down those areas, trying to clear all the space and all the tissue that I need to restore as much normal function to the area. To make this harder, what we can get you to do is we get you to bridge up a little bit to get some more pressure down through the joints to encourage them to release and to mobilize faster. Again, make sure that you can breathe. Make sure you feel entirely comfortable here. Now, if this is also a little bit too easy for you, or you feel like you need a little bit more pressure to make some progress, what we can actually do is, because this is so central to your shoulder function, we can include your shoulder movements into this and shear free some of that tissue. So right now, my arm sort of gets to about here-ish before it gets a bit tight. But if I gently oscillate in and out of that range, I'm using normal shoulder motion and arm motion to shear free some of the restrictions underneath where the ball tends to be. And as you can hopefully see, in a very short amount of time, again, I can get to here before I feel some tightness. In a very short amount of time, you should feel like the ball really digs in there and starts to make a huge difference in terms of how far my shoulder can actually move. And again, you can come all the way up to the top to that first rib, which is particularly a dysfunctional spot for a lot of people. When you're right up the top of that rib cage, you might need to arch up a little bit as well, just to get the right angle onto this. But the point being is that wherever you feel you can get to here, and again, this is me at the moment, as I gently and respectfully oscillate in and out of that end range, as that tissue gives, my arm should go further and further and further, and it should feel smoother and smoother and smoother as well. So that exercise is genuinely one of the best exercises that I would recommend that anyone try to improve the function of that upper back. And if we want to take this a small step further, it's also really important to have a conversation surrounding why that part of your back tends to become stiff and tight over time, particularly if one side feels particularly stiffer and tighter and potentially tender than the other. And in this instance, what I find clinically is that the number one reason why that upper back tends to get stiff and tight is it's often a reflection of the constant shapes and positions we get into. And you'll notice a theme throughout a lot of these exercises is that the common reason for why we probably have to do these exercises is often because the positions we get into day to day, whether you're standing, leaning over, or sitting down, relaxing, or doing something, we tend to put ourselves in positions that change the way that we're loading our tissue, and that tissue over time has to become stiffer and tighter to adapt to what you're asking it to do unknowingly over time. So if you're getting into some shapes where you're sitting at a computer and relaxing, you're sitting in the couch watching TV, you're driving in a certain shape, even if you're just on the couch using your phone or whatever it might be, playing an instrument, whatever you find you might spend the most time doing throughout the day. The important thing is that if you're not in a good position and you find that you do drop and roll forwards a little bit, often the weight of the arm under gravity is often hanging off those particular parts of the body, asking them to become stiff over time. So again, it goes without saying that if you're trying really hard to mobilize your upper back and then get that moving a lot better than what it was previously, it's also really important to take a step back and consider how good your day-to-day shapes and positions might be so that you don't have to keep doing this forever. So as always, if you found that genuinely helpful, please consider leaving a like rating down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new. There's still a couple of extra exercises that are going to come out over the next few weeks that are the vital exercises that I think everyone should be doing. So if you want to be notified with that, please hit that notifications bell as well. Let me know in the comments down below how you found that actually felt to do. I'd hazard a guess and say if you haven't done it before, you might have found some things that you had no idea were actually there. And if you genuinely found this video helpful and it did potentially maybe give you a piece of the puzzle that you didn't know you were missing, please consider leaving a super thanks donation on the video. It's a great way to help support me and the channel. It allows me to keep making these videos as a full-time physio, and I hope to make a lot more over time, so I would be grateful for any support you can give. But with that being said, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.